Well, good morning, listeners. Today, Dina and I are talking to you about a special topic. Oh, Dina, do you want me to calm down a little bit?
You have to slow your words per minute and not be
Sorry, listeners.
influenced by anything.
Yeah, that was your speed was correct. You did not have me on 1.5 or 2 speed on your playback. Today, we are talking about 137 trimethylxanthine, aka caffeine.
Love. I was gonna
Love.
say you're speaking, Latin to the listeners or something.
I just think it's a cool,
Biochemistry.
like trimethylxanthine. I don't know. Maybe I just think that's a cool word, right?
It
137
is.
trimethylxanthine. Anyway, listeners, if you ever hear that, that's caffeine. Okay. But, what are we talking about? I mean, caffeine, Dina, I feel like we could have 10 million episodes on because it's
Yeah.
so popular. It's such an important part of many people's lives, including ours, right? But yeah, I mean, today I feel like we're just going to talk about really not the basics of it, but really how much caffeine should you consume, and then how do we consume it, or how should we consume it, right? And we're just kind of
Yeah.
kind of make this short and sweet, and you'll definitely learn a lot, even though if you are a caffeine connoisseur, right? But I think to start it off with, Dina, I know you're drinking a caffeinated beverage
Ooh,
currently,
yeah.
right? Yes.
Cheers. Yes, I am having a matcha,
Yeah. All
which
right.
we'll
Yeah.
talk about, different kinds or sources of caffeine. But yeah, I thought I would make one before we recorded this episode just to, have some real-time enjoyment of this substance
Just to
or,
be in the spirit. But
yes,
you never really
compound.
drink it during our episodes.
Sometimes you'll catch me a quick mute so I can
Okay.
chug a little of
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. Yeah.
respective caffeine source for the day.
Well, but listeners, I say that because as you may know or may not know, we are heading on over to YouTube a lot more these days. So you're going to see all of our current episodes being published on our YouTube channel at ISN Podcast or Inside Sport Nutrition over there on YouTube, which is why this is kind of fun when we have some show and tell, right? And I
Exactly.
already had my 2 cups of mate this morning.
You
So
did.
we are
Okay.
all good on our side of things, right? But
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, so this is kind of why I bring that up. So I had 2 cups of mate. You're having 1 cup of matcha, right?
Yep.
There's so many different ways, which we'll talk about. But I think part of the confusion is maybe some people eventually get at this answer of like, how much should I drink, or how much can my body take, or should I take? Wow, I didn't sleep a lot. Should I have more, right? I mean, really, the first question that begs is like the dosing of caffeine. And maybe we should start with the research first and then bring it into real life,
Yeah, that sounds good, Bob.
right? Because
And
there's a
I
lot of numbers.
I know, and I feel like the dosing gets a little confusing. It's kind of like when we prescribe like how many protein grams per
Mhm.
day, and people are like, I don't even know what that means for food. And so similarly with caffeine dosing, it's like in often in the research, right? It's in milligrams of caffeine
Mhm.
per kilogram body weight. And so just like, okay, those numbers are fancy and I don't know what to
Yeah.
do with them.
And nobody's standing in the line at Starbucks with their calculator figuring out their milligrams per kilogram of body weight before they order, right? So
That's
it's
not super
so
common.
yeah. But the cool thing is, I think from the research, we have such a big range, right? And I'll say, let me come back. It's a safe range, right? There's certainly you can go above the recommended, would not recommend it at all. And we'll talk about kind of what we see in practice here eventually. But I think, for the most part, research is saying 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. Although I've also seen 1 to 3, which is kind of where I like to start because it's more conservative.
Yes. And
So
then,
if you think about it, you're taking your body weight in pounds, dividing it by 2.2 and multiplying it by 1 and then 3. And then you have your caffeine range for the day. Is that what we're saying?
yeah. And I have seen that upper limit, and I know you've seen that before because we
Mhm.
talked about it sometimes going up to 9 milligrams
Yeah.
of caffeine per
Ooh.
kilo body weight. I mean, the range is massive, Bob.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to think about, and like getting a little calculator experiment for each listener. Yeah, like figuring out what that range is. I think it's always fascinating to hear when we're doing this little experiment, like, well, how much are you getting right now? And just some people are super surprised. Oh, I thought I was getting so much caffeine, and they're
Hmm.
not, or perhaps the opposite scenario. Anyway, it's a fun game.
Yeah, I think you know if you're getting too much, right? Because you get the jitters, you get like hyper focused for a little bit, and then you kind of come down pretty hard if you don't have any other things in your caffeine to help kind of that jittery crash. But I
Yeah.
feel like, we know if we're consuming too much and sometimes too little because you're like, oh, I don't feel anything, but you can kind of get in trouble with that one, obviously. But I think what we need to bring in is probably the whole metabolism, like the fast and slow metabolizers of caffeine, which is based on what, Dina? One of your favorite topics.
Ooh, yeah, we have a few genes that indicate how fast, slow, or, just like middle of the road we are metabolizing caffeine. So, I mean, of course, we have our own subjective experience. For some of our listeners, you know that you cannot tolerate much caffeine at one time. And you have, like you just mentioned, Bob, some of the jitters, or you just don't feel good. You might have nausea or a weird lightheadedness feeling, and others don't experience anything other than maybe that other potential benefit is like, I am so focused now
Mm.
and I am so productive and all of those things. Anyway, back to what we were just saying, we do have genes that we can look at and see what our gene variants are to help us better understand how we're metabolizing caffeine. And then that can help with our dosing prescription.
So, Dina, I get this question a lot. Do I need to have a genetics test to identify those genes in addition to a lot of other genes, right, regarding nutrition?
Yeah.
But do I need a genetics test to tell me that, or can I just kind of figure it out on my own? Do you get that question quite a bit?
I mean, I've heard that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And well, do you want to give your response?
No, I was kind of asking you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think if we're having problems or trying to make something more clear or really figure out a new strategy and it's been confusing, there's too many confounders, the genetic testing definitely is insightful. But I don't think for everyone, like, oh, now you have to get a genomic test to understand. But, for those who have struggled or we're just trying to piece apart problems and figure out solutions, it definitely can be helpful. That's my
Okay, here's my
response.
here's my take on that. You ready for this one?
Okay. Okay.
So my take is number one, and listeners, you've heard us talk about this test before, but number one, it is a one time in your life test. Spend $300 to $400 one time in your life for this test. Okay, because here's the reason why. There will be other nutrition challenges that present to you that are unrelated to these two genes that are mentioned in this test regarding caffeine, right? So there are other genes that tell us all this information about different pathways in our body. And listen, I mean, because I've seen it, and Dean and I do this testing and these interpretations for people all the time. We've seen these challenges pop up, and haven't we always wanted that in extra information, D, to be able to say, God, if we just had their genomics data, we could probably help figure this out a lot easier or a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
So my take is do you need it just for to tell you if you're a slow or fast metabolizer of caffeine? No. But at a certain point in your life, especially as you're aging and thinking about longevity, yeah, go have the one and done test. Like it's not like it's thousands of dollars, right? It's just go have it done when it makes sense financially because it'll help you navigate the rest of your life. So if you happen to hire Dina or I or another sport dietitian or whomever you're talking, your physician say, oh, by the way, I've got this data on myself. That makes it so much easier for us to tackle future nutrition challenges.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that test.
And okay, I'll just add to that, Bob. And I'm pulling this from the genomic testing company that you and I both use.
Yeah,
There is a 40-fold difference in between people at how we metabolize caffeine.
that's amazing.
40-fold. So, I
Ooh,
mean, that's significant,
it
right?
is. It
So, yeah.
is. Yeah. I mean,
anyways.
I have to be careful. I mean, if we kind of transition into like what we're seeing in practice and doing in real life, like, people invite me out to coffee or whatever, like I have to be careful because I know I'm a slow metabolizer from the data. But I also know if I do have too much, because I've tried in my younger years to try to push that envelope like when I was racing more triathlon, like short
Okay.
course triathlon,
Yeah.
to really see like how much can I get amped up on this, right? Before it really started to hit me
Okay.
negatively. So I did a lot of, N of one experiments, and that was before my genomics testing. I wish I had that genomics testing prior to that because I had, and not that I had some serious consequences, but I had a lot of sleepless nights, and actually I hurt my performance by taking too much caffeine.
Oh,
And we see that
yeah.
of slow metabolizers, such as I am, of caffeine. So instead of just,
Yeah.
downing whatever your favorite caffeine source is, maybe you should know a little bit more about how your body metabolizes it.
Well, you're making a really good point, Bob, that I don't think too many people think about the connection between our intentional caffeine intake or unintentional, unaware caffeine intake and how that might affect the downstream. Like how am I going to sleep tonight and how is that going to affect my recovery? Am I using caffeine to just get through my day and then I forget, oh, shoot, or don't know? Man, this is going to trash my sleep.
Mhm.
Tomorrow's workout's going to suffer, and just like that domino effect.
Yeah.
So
And
that's awesome
and
you brought that up.
well, and to that point too, I mean, we can bring in a lot more physiological variables like blood pressure, like HRV, resting heart rate. Like if you're tracking some of these, especially blood pressure, because blood pressure is aligned with, if you do consume too much caffeine and you are a slow metabolizer, it can have negative effects on your blood pressure. Not a lot of people measure their blood pressure these days. I would highly recommend that. But even if you're just doing your HRV, whether it's Whoop strap, your Oura ring, or whatever, those are things to look at. And even if you know your genomics and genetics with caffeine, and even if you know how many milligrams of caffeine you're inputting each day, it's still helpful to keep track of those biomarkers because other things can affect the biological organism, that being our body.
Which
Yeah,
is pretty important.
it is.
Well, I wonder, Bob, just touching on how we are getting our caffeine, because I think
Mm,
this can be super enlightening
hmm
and kind of mind-blowing. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many ways that we get caffeine, some of which we may not be aware of. I mean, it's kind of hard, I think, to hide caffeine,
hmm
but I think with all of our food science and creative products and things these days, sometimes I find people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was caffeine in that item.
Well, it's a good point because, a lot, and we'll get into this list here in a second, but a lot of these companies are actually being pretty sneaky, maybe on purpose. Who knows why, right? But if it doesn't say caffeine, here's the thing, because I've worked with a lot of athletes where they're looking on the label and they're like, no, there's no caffeine in it. And I'm like, oh, well, there's guarana and there's, like that is like, that's caffeine. Just because it doesn't say caffeine doesn't mean it doesn't have caffeine in it because some of these other substances, i.e. herbs, will have caffeine in them. So that's kind of it's almost a slippery slope. And I see that a lot in college athletics, D, especially with energy drinks. Oh my God. And if we could just start on that one, like obviously we're looking at things like Red Bull. Yeah. But I kind of feel like Red Bull is synonymous with caffeine. Like if you consume a Red Bull, you know why you're taking, like right?
Yeah.
But I have seen in the past couple of years in the collegiate space where a lot of these manufacturers are making these really like pretty cans. They're pretty names, and I'm not going to name any names, but it's not like Red Bull, right?
Mm,
That's like, right? It's more like, I mean, honestly, it's actually targeted more towards females, I feel. And there is a certain brand out there that was, and a lot of my female collegiate athletes are bringing it to me. I'm like, wow, this is genius in their marketing, even with the can and the graphic design and everything. I mean, at the end of the day, it's liquid caffeine, and depending on the sources, which we'll talk about in a different episode. But, I feel like the energy drinks are tricky because and we've done things on it. We've talked about energy drinks before, but you just have to be careful because it's not just the Red Bulls anymore. It's really some creative marketing, um, things that are going on with food manufacturers, drink manufacturers that are trying to really enter the space more creatively and safely.
hmm. It is interesting. I just monitor those trends and things like, oh, wow,
Mhm.
what's in it is really not all that different from, but the outside of the product being targeting certain individuals or a population. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a host of other drinks that have caffeine.
Hmm.
It's not just energy drinks. And I feel like a lot of people just think it's energy drinks, right? But what other things have caffeine, D?
Oh, well, I know we mentioned matcha and the
Mm-hmm.
mate. So we've got like our green teas. I mean, there's black tea that has some caffeine. And then, of course, we have things like our Coca-Cola and our
Hmm.
Mountain Dews and some of those other kind of sodas. Espresso, coffee, couple other common
Sports
daily
drinks these
beverages.
days, right? I mean, remember in the back in the days, check,
Yep.
when we
Check.
didn't like a sport drink was just a sport drink, right? And now we
Yeah.
have, whoa, like we really have to qualify what's in a sport drink because now
Yeah.
we have caffeine in sport drinks. I want to go back to the little Coca-Cola thing or whatever because that's hugely popular in the Ironman world, always has been, like flat Coke at mile
Yeah.
whatever on the run. But those things exist, and whether or not that's right for your system, you have to determine that, listener. But I'm not that I'm anti Coca-Cola for Ironman athletes, but we just have to be careful of the fructose content too, especially if someone has GI distress. So there's
Yeah.
again, just because it has caffeine in it doesn't mean it's going to work for your entire system,
Yeah.
right? It may
Right.
stimulate your brain and drop your rating of perceived exertion, great, but it may actually piss off other things in your body.
Exactly. And that makes me think of the pre-workouts that
Oh
have been
my
around for
gosh.
decades,
Oh.
with the bodybuilding scope and everything. And
Hmm.
like some of those pre-workout caffeine, I just got one recently. It is a mega jolt. Like we're talking 4x Red Bull, And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like, oh, and by the way, there's these other stimulants and things in it. So hopefully your heart is fine, and just some of that. And then I was also thinking, Bob, just on the like social aspect. There are alcoholic
Mm,
beverages that are
right,
paired with
right.
caffeine.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm kind of maybe too old for consuming any of that kind of thing, but maybe your college kids talk to you about
Hmm.
that or you've seen that
Hmm.
or
Oh yeah.
anyways. And then even like seltzer waters,
Yeah. Even plain
right?
water, D. Yeah.
What?
Like it's caffeinated water. You're like, it
Yeah,
blows my mind. It blows my
I
mind,
don't know about
honestly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to each their own, right? I'm kind of curious. Can we go back to the pre-workouts? Because you just said you
Yeah.
got one. It's like 4x Red Bull. I'm sure our
Well, I
listeners,
might have exaggerated a little.
but I'm sure our listeners are thinking the same thing. They're like, oh my God, does Dina take that?
Well, I'm experimenting. It's
Oh,
a friend
okay.
of mine who knows somebody who developed this pre-workout.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so I got my hands on it. And there's a couple
Okay.
other compounds in there. I was like, I don't know what words these are.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
try this thing. So yeah, just experimenting a little bit before some.
Yeah, but it is a good point. Like we do our due diligence, listeners.
Yeah.
I think if you know us, you know that. Like we'll research the heck out of it, then we'll actually try it ourselves, and then we'll
Yeah.
talk about it because we do want to kind of get the whole feel. Like
Yeah.
in again, this may be N of one. Maybe you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, this product didn't work for me. Maybe it's just you. Maybe it's N of one. Maybe it's your genetics. Maybe who knows,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But I think that's important. Just the pre-workouts, just to stay there for another second. It seems like a million on the market. It's kind of like energy bars these days. It
Yeah.
is so difficult to highlight any good pre-workout. And I only say that not to say there aren't good ones on the market, but because it's so saturated right now, it makes it so difficult for consumers, even us, D, to
Yeah.
try to weed through that space right now. Because like you were saying, I mean, there are these new ingredients that we've never heard of before that these food scientists are doing whatever they do in the lab. And wow, that's all I have to say is wow. But
Yeah.
we've never heard of them. So I guess listener beware when you're trying to pick these out, and definitely consult a qualified sport dietitian before you do, because again, we can help do that research, or if it's not we, us, someone else can help you do that research because we don't want you to use something that would destroy your health.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
point. Well, aside from drinks, Bob, I mean, let's mention a few other ways people get caffeine. I mean, I'm trying not to be Ms. Obvious here, but I think there are a few things here that people don't realize have
Yeah.
caffeine or like this, oh, wow, this could be an option for my training or my
Yeah,
racing that I
for
didn't think
sure.
about.
Well, I think that, the obvious one is drinks, like you said, right? But then in things like even like the 5 hour energies, because that's kind of a drink. It's a shot,
Yeah.
right? But yeah,
Uh-huh.
even things like gum, right? And I know
Uh-huh.
like, listeners, if you're in the world, you know what I'm talking about, but some people might be like, what? There's caffeinated gum? Oh yeah, there's like anything gum these days. There's I remember this product, it probably is still on the market. It's called Neuro gum, like neuro brain stuff, right? But there's gums, there's sport
Yeah.
nutrition products. I mean, how many times have we seen a gel, gummies or chews? I
Yep.
mean, you name it. I mean, they are literally, they meaning manufacturers are putting caffeine in everything possible these days. I want to bring up something that is obvious yet less obvious. And I only say this because it shocks me whenever I do talk to some athletes. They're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Just one of my pure loves in life, dark chocolate, right? And some
Yes.
people just don't associate that. Like they may know in the back of their mind, "Oh yeah, there's some caffeine in there," but they may not associate that with like it is a source of caffeine, right? I feel like more
Hmm.
people are like, "Oh no, Red Bull." Caffeine or coffee, espresso, but with chocolate. Now, I say this, D, because in real life, like I've had some athletes who can put down chocolate. I mean, they can like out eat me with chocolate, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're actually getting probably upwards of maybe more than a cup of coffee, right? Depending on your serving size. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the flying under the radar I want to bring up. I mean, even in my snack company, like shameless plug, here we
Oh,
go, all
yeah.
around snack co. I've got energy bites. One of the flavors is chocolate espresso, where I literally put espresso powder in these energy bites. So,
Yeah.
like per bite, there's 10 milligrams of caffeine. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not, it comes from espresso beans, but still, those are the things that are not that they're in hiding, but I think we kind of glaze over them because they're not 200 milligram Red Bulls, right? They're not that
Yeah.
big wow statement.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, and that made me think from your snack bites, also just thinking of other companies that have nutrition bars. And
Yeah.
some of those even have some caffeine, not from chocolate added, but just like whether it's a coffee bean extract or some
Yep.
other like the synthetic caffeine.
Green tea
And
extract, we see a lot of that.
yeah, so like it is coming in various food forms, maybe convenience foods, not just chocolate or
Yeah.
espresso powder type. So that's interesting, the array of choices we have. And then thinking for our own gut tolerance and whether we're in exercise or training versus daily nutrition, just
Hmm.
the options that we have, some
Yep.
of which are, I think, beneficial and others may not be.
Well, I
So,
think, and you just need to know what you're looking for. Like some of these things, like I said earlier, I think they confuse you and I sometimes with all these
yeah.
ingredients, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think, as smart consumers, we need to be on the lookout of like what do we need. I mean, it'd be great to
Yeah.
know your body first, have some genetic testing first, so you kind of go into it with that, but then know what you're looking for. Like, is it what type of caffeine? And we're gonna talk about that in a future episode, but I just wanted to kind of do a little teaser because I'm not going to show this on video because I want everyone to go over to our Patreon account, patreon.com/ISN podcast. But listen really quick.
Oh, wait.
Can you hear that?
No. Uh-uh.
Yeah, you can.
I don't hear it.
Anyway, I'm shaking a bottle, and the bottle has capsules in it because we didn't mention capsules, right? So there are different types of caffeine pills, capsules. I actually found a brand and a product that I love to, you know what, and I actually use it in my training, right? I don't use it often, but when I need it, especially for longer stuff, and
Yeah.
works wonderful. I'm not going to say the name of it. I'm not going to tell you what's in it because I'm going to actually highlight that in our Patreon account
Okay.
for all of our members over there. So peeps, head on over to our account and you'll see what it is. But also, I'm going to do a little video review of it so you can I'll let you know what's in it and kind of why I take it and when I take it. But my point is also this, D. We can have caffeine in different types. In capsules, in pill format, in powder format, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not limited to food or beverage products.
Ooh, I love. Well, good and bad. We have so many options and like it can be overwhelming. So I think we should invite our listeners to, yeah, join us over on our Patreon account and let us know what is driving you nuts about the caffeine thing or where you are curious, what do you need to help you excel in your life performance and your sport performance. So head over to patreon.com/ISN podcast. Let's hear about your caffeine and we will share our current favorite caffeine sources over there, your special bottle that I couldn't quite hear, Bob. But, anyways, anything else, Bob?
No, I think if you want to end this episode by lifting your cup and
Oh,
saluting our
yeah, a little
listeners for being
cheers.
awesome, yeah, I'll lift my You Can Hydrate electrolyte
Okay,
just because I'm
caffeine
on my
free.
electrolyte. Yeah,
All
well,
right.
I already caffeinated myself now, because I'm a slow metabolizer, so I need to watch it, right? I have like this certain time that I level off and I
Yep.
introduce my electrolytes. So yeah, so
Okay.
cheers to our listeners.
Cheers. And we will catch y'all on our next episode.